How you doing, everybody? This is Jeremy Winston, of course, and I'm so excited. I'm so honored to have our associate pastor for young adult ministry speaking with me and to the community via me today.
It's my pleasure, I think.
You think, yes.
We'll find out.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, right? So before we jump into some of the questions I have, tell us about the podcast and that you've launched since this quarantine season.
Yeah, actually. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. A few different things actually that the quarantine kind of just forces you to do. You don't have other options. So I've been enjoying that. It's really just a daily reflection about the spiritual life. I think the spiritual life is better day in and day out. So it's just me sharing a little bit of my journey along the way and trying to give tools for other people to encourage them in their journey. So we're in the fourth week, and I've had over 500 listens, and people from different places in the world, which is weird to say something about it. So just having some fun, and hopefully it's blessing people. So
awesome. So how often will if someone wants to catch it, they haven't heard it yet, how often can they expect to get this podcast?
Yeah, so I'm posting every morning, Monday through Friday. So it's a 10 to 15 minute episode. So it's not really long. You listen to it while you're getting ready or on the way to wherever you have to go or can go right now. But yeah, just short reflections, 10 to 15 minutes, Monday through Friday, usually between 7:30 they get uploaded.
And it's called
Pastor's Pad Podcast, a daily reflection on life with Jesus.
Awesome. That felt a little rehearsed. I may edit that part.
I've just been saying it a lot. So.
Right. I'll edit what I said. Okay, here we go. Let's get into learning a little bit about Paddy, maybe even before Paddy came to Kettering. When did you first hear your call into ministry?
Man, I was thinking about that. It's such a weird thing to think about your own call. All I can really say, I don't know that I ever, even when I was a kid, I remember there was a point in time when I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And probably because I was watching shows like Perry Mason and Matlock and Murder, She Wrote with my grandmother, right? So I didn't really know what else the options were. But I can remember even at that point, well, can I be a lawyer and work for Jesus? Because I want to make sure whatever I do, I'm working for Jesus. And my brother gave me a book about lawyers, and they were jokes, and they weren't nice jokes. And so obviously after reading that book, I thought as a kid, well, I can't be a lawyer and work for Jesus, obviously, according to this book. So anyway, I could just remember for a long time, I always wanted to do something for Jesus. I didn't know what that was. I think I had a couple of places in high school doing different things up front and sharing testimony or talking about Jesus, where I definitely felt like that was something I resonated with. And so it kind of grows and develops over time before you realize what that means. But so as far as I can remember having at least a strong connection of wanting to do whatever I did for Jesus.
So when you went to college, a lot of us go to college and we say we're undecided. We kind of work our way. When you went to college, you knew this theology ministry was going to be your major. You're set going in?
Absolutely. And when I say absolutely, I mean no, not at all. No, I think when I pre-registered for college, I pre-registered as a theology major. But then when I enrolled undecided, and I was undecided for probably almost 2 full years. Best 2 full years of my life. But at the end of that, I declared actually religion, not theology, because religion gave me a little bit more room to wiggle and pick and choose my classes and whatever else. So I declared my major, and then I went off for a year as a student missionary. So it really gave me time to kind of wrestle with that and solidify it and come back, and I was full in. But for a little while, I wrestled. Yeah.
What's been interesting having these conversations with the pastors is seeing the similarities between stories and what kind of led them into it. So far, you are the first, and I've done a few interviews up to now, and you're the first who did not reference directly, you kind of did, but reference directly a week of prayer as kind of being the watershed moment when they knew I was going to be a pastor. So I was really, I was on the verge of saying this may be a case study. I mean, to take this larger to the church and see if week of prayer is the fertile ground to find new pastors. But I will say there is a similarity between you and Alex, because Alex also said she wanted to be a lawyer. As a matter of fact, I think Alex was majoring in law for a significant period. And so,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
so there's a connection between lawyers and pastors, right? Maybe the opposite end of the scales, not the bad, the pastors are the holy ones. The lawyers are
Yeah.
not. Forgive me to any lawyers who are watching.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, and all the lawyer shows that I watched with my grandmother, the good lawyer never loses. Perry Mason, Matlock, they all win all the time. So
I mean, listen, To Kill a Mockingbird. Lawyers have
Atticus Fitch.
they have been the heroes in so many places. Only in fiction though.
That's right.
So do you remember the topic of your first sermon?
It's hard because I did a lot of little things along the way. I did speak at, chapels or week of prayer type stuff, for things. I can remember actually I was in high school and I was asked to just share a worship with the elementary school. And I was so nervous thinking about talking to little kids, like, oh, how could I make sure they understand what I'm saying? And so I'm standing in front of like kindergarten to fourth graders. Like, these aren't dumb kids, they're smart. And I said something like, hey kids, I want to tell you a story about an airport. Do you know what an airport is? Of course they know what an airport is. But I remember that. But my first official preaching at a pulpit in a church was preaching class in college. And I preached at this little tiny church. Most of the ones that they let you into are, and it was a Christmas sermon. So I think it was on Mary and how, the first thing we do when we're called is we look at ourselves, and give all the reasons why we can't do it. So when Mary gets the, announcement, she's going to give birth to Jesus, she's like, well, I can't, I'm a virgin, So I think that's what the official first sermon was. But I do remember even in that moment, I wasn't super churched in the typical fashion for some of the others, so there were things I just didn't know. And I could still remember getting asked by one of the elders at that church if I would have the benediction, and I was like, oh sure. And then immediately I'm like, what is a benediction? I don't know what that is. So I guess I'll figure it out when it comes to that point, but I had no idea.
You didn't know if you agreed to do a solo.
I knew it wasn't musically related. I was safe there, but
that would have been pretty exciting. I mean, this is living on the edge. Absolutely, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Right. What do you? And so we're going to turn a little heavy at this point, but I'm really interested to know, what do you believe is one of the greatest threats facing Christianity in general?
Christianity
or Adventism?
No. That's my answer.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were asking me, do I have to talk about Christianity?
No.
All right, gotcha.
No, I would say Christianity.
Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was the same in Jesus's day, right? If you were to say if you were to ask Jesus, what do you think the greatest threat to Judaism is? I think he would say Jews. I mean, there's the book that says the best witness is a Christian and the worst witness is a Christian. But I really think that we're getting to a place of such arrogance sometimes in the church that we seem to care more that people know what we're against than what we're for. We seem to be more concerned about drawing lines about who's in and who's out, which, I look at the ministry of Jesus, he was all about blowing up those lines and letting everybody in. In fact, that's one of the reasons that he got killed. Was that his idea of the kingdom was too big, too many people. And so with the bad reputation that Christianity is getting, and there's all sorts of reasons to that. But I think you're fighting more of when people hear, oh, you're a Christian, been there, done that, or they assume that you're not smart, you're not a critical thinker, and you make all these assumptions that are made. But we've got to fight against that. And by fighting against it, I don't mean with attacks. Jesus said, all people everywhere will know you are my disciples by how you love one another. And I think we got to get back to loving radically and beyond the lines and the boundaries and the borders, and make sure people know what we're for, not what we're against. So I think Christianity is a big threat to Christianity growing and being healthy. But as always, God's bigger than us. So he'll do what he has to do to grow his kingdom.
Do you remember what your worst speaking experience? We want some embarrassing moments from Paddy.
It wasn't necessarily a speaking engagement. I can tell you the worst thing that ever happened to me on stage.
There we go. That qualifies. That qualifies.
It was a presentation. It was a ministry. It was a youth festival. It was actually in Walla Walla, Washington. So it was at their academy. I think there were 500 to 600 people in attendance. And my friend, who actually lives in this area, she lives up in Yellow Springs. Her name is Jackie. And she was born here in Kettering, and then she and I met in Walla Walla, actually, but we were both originally from Kettering, which was crazy. And she and I would do a lot of drama. So we would write a lot of skits and plays and do different things and travel all around and do stuff. So we were at this youth festival, and we were doing a skit on, I can't remember exactly what the topic was, but the style of the skit was a talk show, and kind of the 90s talk show, the Phil Donahue kind of thing. Ricky Lake. Oh, yeah, there you go. You'd have a guest speaker on there, and then 2 co-hosts, but the co-hosts are really going at it. So she represented, I think, the conservative co-host, and I was the liberal co-host, and so we were battling back and forth. And at one point in the skit, she throws water in my face, and then we cut to commercial. So commercial, we leave the stage, and it's a big stage with linoleum flooring. So we leave the stage. These people come out. They do a commercial. I think it was promoting one of the schools or something. And then it was time for us to come back on. So the announcer says, "It's time again for the Knick Knack Patty Jackie show," which is what it was called. And we go running into the middle to meet each other, but she hits the water that was on the stage from hitting my face, and she goes down flat as a board and ends up sliding about 15 feet total. I mean, she went a long ways. And in the course of that, I had to jump over her because she was coming right at me. So her heel gouged my leg. I literally had blood rolling down my leg. She took out 2 microphone stands and a music stand before she stopped. So the crazy thing is that, I'm trying to help her make sure she's okay and everything's okay. And we're getting all the stage back together, because this is now the serious part of the skit. We're supposed to turn serious. And I could tell there was laughter in the audience. Like, people were like, "Oh, you guys are great. What incredible artists you are to be able to pull something like that off." So I'm supposed to then start with the serious line. I have the first line, and we get all ready. She says she's fine. I'm fine. I don't feel my leg thing. Adrenaline's pumping. And I turn around to look at her and say that first line. But when I turn, I see the streak marks on the stage. And all I can picture in my head, I can't remember the line. All I can picture is her face going down. And it's all slow motion. And so we broke character. We talked about it. We're like, yeah, this was not planned. And that was probably one of the craziest things that happened to me on stage.
This is the second interview where I've been brought to tears at these stories, and I feel bad because I know in those moments it is excruciating. It's excruciating.
Yeah. Because everything's so intensified. And, all eyes are on you, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's going to happen. Did Jason tell about the time he fell during Children's Story?
He did not, but he did not tell about that, because I don't think we got to that. Jason was also very verbose, which is surprising.
Shocking.
Shocking.
That's so weird.
And I had to skip over a couple of questions, and I think I skipped over that one, but this was really good. I'm imagining.
I'm glad I could have that moment for you.
Thank you so much. I tell you what, I needed that laugh today. Oh, I feel sorry for Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie.
Yeah, it was bad for her.
All right, I'm going to jump out because we're moving in on time, and but we want to talk a little bit. We're going to step outside of the church realm, which everyone knows you, and we're going to talk about some things that maybe people don't know about you. So, what are some hobbies of yours? Something Paddy McCoy loves to do when he's got free time, and maybe money's not an issue, and the time's not an issue. He can just do it.
Yeah, all those things you just mentioned, I have no idea what that is. Time, money issues. No,
let's use imagination at this point.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I love hanging out with my kiddos and my wife. I'm a baseball guy. So, I mean, I like sports, but baseball is definitely my biggest one for me personally. So enjoy baseball. I'm a drama guy, and so the arts and acting and production and Broadway and that kind of stuff, I do enjoy a lot of that. I've done a lot of that over the years. I enjoy reading books. The Bible, of course, being one of the top ones of those.
2 Corinthians.
Yeah, but I love education, and then honestly, some of my free time is doing ministerial work outside of my local calling, and trying to find ways to make to reintroduce Jesus in places in Christianity that maybe we've forgotten how incredible he actually is, and to make sure he's central in all of our lives. And so I spend a fair amount of time doing that too. So
tell us a role that you played.
So in that, or you mean acting?
Acting, yeah. I'm sorry, I've jumped back a couple.
Yeah. Man, I would say my favorite role, which I know as soon as I say this, you're going to be like, oh, they typecast you. I played John Merrick, the Elephant Man.
Oh.
And I say typecast because I walked in for the audition. They're like, hey, we don't even need makeup for this guy.
Right.
But that was probably my most serious role that I played, and really enjoyed being able to jump into that. I did Cheaper by the Dozen. I did a Narcissa Whitman thing in college. Goodness, I'm blanking on some other things. You Can't Take It With You. Oh, You Can't Take It With You was a fun one. I think I was the, I just remember one line in that I got to say, I was bringing in a jar of pickled pig's feet, and I literally had the jar with me. And of course this was at an Adventist school. And so I just enjoyed being able to have that line that I was bringing in pickled pig's feet for everyone to enjoy.
And it didn't make you take it out.
No, I didn't. And no one ever dared, like no one on the cast, in high school, you would figure that'd be top-notch thing. Like, oh, dare him to do this. And no one ever did. It just was there for all 4 weeks of our performance was the jar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So next thing, describe your 20s in one sentence.
Yeah. I had fun, got married, had my children, found my career that I felt I was made for, and yes.
Good sentence.
Met my hero, Pete Rose. So I'll say that.
Oh, Pete Rose is your hero. That's a pretty interesting nugget.
Well,
is he?
Baseball, yes.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, it doesn't, so is he going to get into the Hall of Fame ever?
Well, let's just say it this way. I've been to the Hall of Fame, and great place. It's really a lot of fun to go there. And I'll say Pete Rose's name is everywhere. So he may not be officially inducted. And I am one of those in the camp that thinks that he should be inducted for how he played the game, and not off the field. Because if you start going with other things people did, there's a lot of shady characters in the Hall of Fame. So I think for how he played and how hard he worked to play the game, that's what I support. So I tried to play like him, and I think in some ways I kind of have that same attitude with work. Hustle, get it done, do your best, work hard. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, here you go. Just a couple of rapid fire questions.
Yep.
Morning, noon, or night? Yes, you have to pick one.
I am whatever I need to be.
Okay,
I think my years of a chaplain, being a campus chaplain on a university campus for 16 years, Literally, like I didn't get to choose. I was a morning person, a night person, and a day person. I just had to do it all. So,
Okay. Favorite movie
Three Amigos.
and why?
It is well, really, I think in the world of art, you don't get something more deep and thought provoking than Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, and Martin Short all in the same film. And so it's really one of those, though. I advise you, if you've never seen it, you've got to watch it a good 10 to 12 times before you really start picking up on all the nuances. So that's my advice. And for those that don't know, I always work one line or one word from Three Amigos into every sermon that I give.
He does, and I picked up on that because he used to call me amigo frequently, and then we got into this conversation. So, where would you visit if you had the chance?
Ireland.
All right.
Haven't been. Like to go.
Where were you born?
Here. Kettering Medical Center.
Awesome. You are at home, literally. I hate to ask this question, but it's on here: Apple or Android?
What's Android?
It's a superior model to Apple, but it's very popular. That's the thing.
That's funny because you think I would have heard of it if
Right.
That's true, but
Right.
that's
But
weird.
Apple users and around the world tend to be so self-absorbed. They don't know the other things are out there.
Is that what it is? Because I know that ours work, so we don't have to worry so much about it.
Right.
And staying connected to the other people that don't use our stuff. So
Right. So we'll say Android. Who is your favorite superhero?
Captain America.
Ah, okay.
My truck's name is actually Cap, but she's a female. But it is after Captain America, so it's a long story.
Listen, it's a free country.
Yeah.
We can call our cars anything we want. Yeah. Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Oh man, I struggle with this one. I don't know. I think I'd probably be too cold.
Too cold?
Yeah, I think so. That's a hard one though.
It is. All right. And last one, favorite holiday?
Dude, really?
St.
Patrick's Day.
Oh, yes.
Are you kidding me? There was one day a year where it was cool to have the name Paddy as a boy, and it was St. Patrick's Day. So that's my favorite, man. And in truth, it's probably Christmas because it's about, Christmas and Easter I love the Jesus focus. What I love about Christmas is like everybody slows down for the one day. Once you get through all the holiday craziness and all that stuff, the 24 hours of Christmas, it's like everybody takes a Sabbath almost. It's about family. It's about connection. I spend a lot of time reflecting on the birth of Jesus and all those things, so I love that. But practically as a boy, St. Patrick's Day.
Fair enough. And it's one thing you just made me think about, and maybe not, this we'll get on, but this time right now is a lot like Christmas. Not in the celebration sense, but when you go out if you go out on Christmas, you're like, oh, that store is open today. I didn't know. Oh, there are 10 people out on the road today. I figured people would be home. That's how it is every time I go out. I'm like, oh, that's open. Oh, there's some more people.
Yeah.
It feels like a Christmas.
Yeah, I've realized that, first of all, I realize how many dogs live in my neighborhood because people are out walking their dogs. Why didn't I see them walking their dogs before? I walked my dog during the day, but why don't I see them ever? But a lot of golden retrievers in my neighborhood, it's interesting. You see people out doing things that you've never seen before.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us. Hope you all just learned a little bit more about Paddy. He's an actor, and he likes Pete Rose, and his car's name is Cap. Listen, where else can you get all this information from? So
here on the Jeremy Winston Network.
The Jeremy Winston Network.
The JWN.
The short-lived Jeremy Winston Network.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks. Take care.